Sarah Katz, author of Apex 5. Thank you so much for coming on and joining the Uniweb interview show. I'm your host, Matthew Whiteside. Sarah, how are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Hey, today is Earth Day, right?
Yes, happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. I saw you tweeted like a video of some ducks or something.
Yes, so my apartment complex, we have a lagoon that runs all throughout the grounds, and we have flocks of Canadian geese that like to migrate around the area. So their babies are around now that it's spring.
Oh, wow. It's a beautiful time of year, isn't it?
Yes.
It's beautiful down here in Atlanta too. I didn't even know it was Earth Day until you posted that. So thanks for keeping me, thanks for keeping me in the loop on.
Yeah, trending on Twitter, I guess. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have realized either.
That's right. I know we get all of our important information from the web.
Yes.
So speaking of the future, I wasn't really speaking of the future, but um, I assume your book Apex 5. Looking at the cover, it's very starry, futuristic looking. What is Apex 5? And this is book 1. What's Apex 5 about?
So Apex 5 follows 5 different nations. It's presumably in either the very distant past or the very far future of Earth,
Mm-hmm.
or at least an Earth-like planet. I, however, headcanon as the author that it's probably our planet at some point in time.
Okay.
Follows 5 nations. These 5 nations have developed around 5 ancient megastructures. This is huge, colossal structures. Like they extend 90,000 feet into the air. So that's higher than your commercial airliner flies.
Wow.
So they're colossal, and no one really knows where they came from, but the people of the planet attribute them to these beings called the Zom. Presumably, they're godlike creatures, but no one's ever seen a Zom or really recorded them,
Mm.
like any evidences to their existence. So basically follows these 5 nations. There is one nation in particular, Tibira, that has somehow very quickly acquired extremely advanced technology, and they are using that tech to try and eradicate religion from the rest of the planet. And so they're essentially trying to colonize in the name of spreading technology.
Oh, wow.
So that's the premise. Um, the there are several main characters, right? It's kind of like Game of Thrones
Yeah.
that way, I guess, but
Well, it's a huge scope. It
it's
sounds
a
like
very huge scope. And I will come out and say right now, I've gotten more than a handful of complaints about that.
it is too large.
Then it's large, and like, folks saying, oh, indie authors can't do that. They can't, handle that level of scope. It's like, actually, I don't think it depends. It's really like, dependent on whether you're indie or not. But it works. I would say that the character Rohem is really the one who you could consider the main character. We really see most of the conflicts through his eyes. So he's also the character that the majority of readers have tended to latch onto.
Mm.
So, I mean, for folks who desire a main character, he's definitely it. So, yeah, it's him and the 5 nations.
Okay, and it starts out with him.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
So, and this is book 1. How many book do you have, like a planned number in the series that you're
Yes.
working with?
So for the time being, this is book 1, and then I'm working on book 2 right now, and book 3 is going to be a prequel, and I don't really know what's going to happen beyond that. That might actually end it, and I might just have like some spin-offs after that. But I definitely have those 3 planned out.
Okay, so you have like a story arc that you're working with. I mean, you have a planned ending in mind.
Right. Right.
Okay. That always interests me because, and I know it can change, right? Because that's why you said possibly 3 or
Yeah.
3, maybe more. Is that something that when you wrote the first one, you wrote Apex 5, did the idea maintain all the way through, or did it change for you? Did it morph into something different?
That's a great question. it did actually stay the same, but I did not have plans to write anything beyond Apex 5. I thought it was going to be a standalone originally. And then I was like, well, it seems that we're at the end of this book, but the story is not really over yet.
Yeah. It's always when there's multiple main characters and such a large scope, it's almost like you can just kind of take your magnifying glass and zoom back in on the world that you want to live in and go for it, right?
Exactly. So there's a lot going on, mainly because we have these nations that are interacting with one another. Obviously, if they weren't, it was just one nation, there'd probably be fewer characters as well. That being said, the second installment is going to have probably fewer than half the characters
Okay.
that the first one has. So it's going to be more focused.
Okay. So what was the whole inspiration for Apex 5? Where did this idea stem from?
So two primary inspirations. One is rapidly advancing technology that we see in the real world and how that can often overwhelm societies. And the second inspiration would be real world politics.
Hmm.
So I was specifically inspired by the Native American and Aboriginal Australian struggle against colonialism, as
Yeah.
well as the Israel Palestine conflict. So, those were the two primary political inspirations. Overall, I would say I did draw inspiration from one culture in particular, just one kind of like not political at all, but just kind of like one culture that serves as inspiration for the gods called the Zom, the ones who are attributed to having built the
Super.
megastructures,
Yeah.
and those entities are more or less inspired by Hindu mythology.
Okay. What it specifically? Did they have like a certain look to them? Because I know that, like
Yeah.
the ancient Egyptians had the idea of people from the stars that came down and
Hmm.
built something on planet Earth. I didn't know anything about Hindu having that same kind of idea, but could you go into that a little bit more if you would mind?
Sure. So there is a certain look associated with these beings. That's where the connection comes in, but it's also just the uh, the Hindus believe that the creators, if you will, reside out in the universe on what's called the infinite cosmic ocean.
Mhm.
And that really gave me inspiration for the concept of the Zom, but also for a kind of an even larger scale concept that I'm going to explore as the series goes on.
Okay. Wow. That seems really, really interesting. I'm always interested in like the future, either an idea of either being like super futuristic or really far in the past is really
Hmm.
neat because it's like
Yeah,
we're who knows, like time kind of like bending in on itself.
right.
Um,
Exactly.
so you also say you're an ethical hacker. Now I'm not familiar with this term.
That just means I work in cybersecurity. It means that we know how the bad guys think, so we have the tools and the skills to be able to hack like they do, but we use our abilities for good.
Ah, cyber superhero.
Yeah, it's kind of not a very known field still now, but it's pretty pertinent.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like obviously the way everything's going, it's all cyber based anyway. Well, and I have this idea of the pretty near future that office buildings won't be occupied by people anymore, but simply by supercomputers. There'll be housings for supercomputers because everything we can do is going to be done in like a virtual workspace, and people
Hmm.
who can I guess either protect that workspace or destroy it are going to be in high demand.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, and then it's like once
you
that
are the
happens, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said you are the future.
I mean, well, if they employ like just AI to do all this, then all the humans will be out of the job. Unless, of course, there's still humans or possibly even like malignant computers out there who are like, trying to attack. Then maybe like humans would have to come in again. But
That's right.
I mean, I personally think that we can't completely automate everything for a very, very long time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much about it. I'm sure you know a lot more about it, but I feel like there's gonna be a place where humans still have to be able to police what's
Hmm.
going on, even with artificial intelligence.
Oh, sure. Yeah, to make
Is
things
this
like
the
haywire.
Yeah, is this stuff that you get into a lot with your writing? I mean, is it one of your favorite
Yes.
things to write about?
I'm going to take a bit of a cyber angle in the sequel. There's going to be an element that is will draw on my cyber knowledge base, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Is there because obviously writing is a very creative medium when it comes to working in the cyber field. Is there any changeover in terms of being artistic or creative, having to go about solving problems in that field, or
You
is it
mean
completely different?
like the use of creative brain versus logical brain?
Yeah, I mean, because I only imagine working in cyberspace is a lot of numbers based, logic based, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
whereas writing creativity is different. Is there any kind of overlap for you?
As sad as it is to say, beyond using a cybersecurity type element in my sequel, there's not really a whole lot of overlap at all.
Yeah. I'm always interested that in that though because I feel like there would have to be some form of because when you have to like think how the the criminals or how the people who want to do harm think you've got to kind of work in that creative space like how are they going to
Thinking
get through
outside the box, yeah.
think yeah you got to think outside the box, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be a matter as simple as like proposing an incentive that these folks could have, like especially if it might be an insider threat. It
Yeah,
can help to understand the context around what could be motivating this person to be carrying out malicious activity. Like, is it
sure,
spite? Is it hacktivism? Stuff like that.
sure. I'm always interested on. I talked to another author previously who also does coding and like builds computers and that kind of thing. I've talked to a few different authors actually that have done that, and it always interests me like which came first. Like you, because you went into this field, was it out of love? Was it out of something that you're just good at innately? And then how did writing fit into the whole equation of your life? Like how did you come to writing?
Sure. So I've been writing as long as I can remember, pretty much as long as I've been able to read. I've
Hmm.
just always wanted to tell stories constantly. And I wrote my first actual novel in high school. Cybersecurity came with the territory of counterterrorism. So I study political science at Berkeley with an emphasis on the Middle East. So obviously, counterterrorism was pretty relevant in that arena as well.
Yeah,
And then I took my graduate studies in counterterrorism, and then from there I settled in the Bay Area, which is obviously very tech oriented. So I just combined security with tech, and
there
I
you have.
mean, I feel pretty fortunate now to be doing two things that I love.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm interested in the whole idea because a lot of us search for just that one thing in our life that we can find that we love to do.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
like that's not
it's
always
yeah,
enough.
it's yeah, but no, but it's a blessing, right? That you have
Yeah.
two things that you enjoy doing. Um, when it comes to writing, how do you find time to write the books? You said you wrote your first novel in high school. Did you ever
Yeah.
work on getting that published?
Yeah. It's really not so easy without connections, though. I mean, it's been self-published before,
Hmm.
but I want to do something more with it because it's a historical fiction and it has elements of magical realism, and I really think that that could go somewhere. It has some romance too. It has more romance than Apex 5 does for sure. Apex 5 is really doesn't have a lot of romance at all, actually, if like any. Um, but yeah, in terms of finding time to write, with Apex 5 it was interesting because with Apex 5 it was just like this flow, like this muse that just came over me on the daily, and I had to write. There was no other choice. So like even if I had a tough day at work, if we worked a lot of critical incidents, I would still just come home and I would write for like at least an hour every day.
Yeah.
And it was similar with my first book, The Messenger from the Mountains. So I was taking SATs, I was running track, I was training in opera, I was
Wow.
volunteering, and then I would come home and write. So I was doing a lot, and I really feel like writing was almost my escapism at that point in time. When I was
Yeah.
writing Apex 5, I was only working. That was my only other project. Whereas in high school with The Messenger, it was like I almost feel like that book was the product of like my creative brain trying to maintain my sanity amidst all the things, like all the obligations I had.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do wish that I had tried to do more with it like way back when, but I mean, back then, like, even self-publishing wasn't really so much in existence yet. So it was really back then, like, you really had to know somebody back then to do anything with your book. I remember I had two different English teachers read the novel, and I think they never really got around to it, which is understandable because they're busy. But I mean, that was really like back then in like 2007. That was the only really avenue I felt that I remotely had in terms of like maybe getting the book in front of someone
Yeah.
else who had any credibility like within literature at all.
Well, you have actually reached out to what, literary agents and publishers, though.
I
Is that right?
have.
Yeah. How did that go?
Nope, nope. uh yeah, I mean, obviously, like most folks deal with that. Actually, I'd
Yeah.
say these, I don't know, to be honest, with my first book it might be a problem of narrowing for my target audience. I'm not really sure what appeals to each agent. Like some folks say they're looking for YA, others say they're looking for magical realism, but they also have other things they're looking for at the same time within that scope. So, for instance, my the first book, um, it focuses on two sisters. One is 17 and one's 15. So that like speaks to, okay, it's probably YA. But then there's like a the two sisters, their mother is raped in the first chapter. So that might skew the target readership a bit, which is totally understandable. I
Yeah.
mean, the story takes place during a wartime. So obviously, like,
Sure.
there's like, it's not that type of thing, rape and violence is not for everyone. Like, when an agent, for example, says they're looking for, like, YA, even historical, they might not necessarily want certain elements in there, and that totally makes
Sure.
sense. So it's kind of hard, I find, to garner what these folks are looking for just from reading their bio, because I have
Yeah.
an idea of what categories the book would fall under, but like not entirely. And then like with Apex, I kind of jumped the gun and I just went straight to small press rather than querying agents, and I shouldn't have done that because now that it's been out there, agents don't really want to look at it. I don't completely understand that line of thinking. I mean,
I don't
obviously,
either. I don't get it either.
it's weird because I mean, obviously, if the book was out there and it gained popularity for being really bad, that would make sense because then
Right.
an agent would be like, okay, I'm not, it's probably not the greatest return on investment, right? But then, like, just, I don't know. I really think I don't mean to sound rude here, but I really think it might come down to just like, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but like, prestige, maybe. Like they're like, oh well, if you couldn't get it in front of like someone important from the get-go, that means it's probably not worth looking at. Which,
Mm.
come on, there's so many people who write. Like there's got to be a lot of hidden gems out there that like these agents just haven't discovered yet.
There are. I mean, I've literally only read indie authors the past, I don't know, 6 months now, and oh my
Excellent.
God, there's so many good storytellers. It blows my mind. Um, but it's true though. It's like so much, and I don't understand it either. Getting your work in front of somebody else, there's got to be so many key ingredients. It's like you got to find the agent on the day that they're interested in what you have written, and you're like, God, it is. And I've talked to some people, and it's really like I got lucky. I was extremely lucky because I feel like it does a lot of times boil down to just getting lucky and,
Oh
and
yeah.
putting stuff out there as much as possible and then getting lucky. Because I mean, it's amazing the amount of work out there and the amount of quality work that's out there that's getting passed up by traditionally published or traditional publishers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, to some extent, I could see it kind of being like a power trip for a lot of these agents, quite honestly. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not for me. It's just like, it's not what I'm looking for. It's like it literally matches everything that your bio states. It's like, oh, but like, no. And it's, I mean, yeah, I don't know. And it's like, you're researching these guys. It's like, oh, like graduate from like Columbia University literature. And it's like, well, yeah, but I don't know how many connections helped you get into Ivy League. You never know.
Yeah, I can imagine how many books they look at on a daily basis or manuscripts that they have to sift through. It's got to be mind-boggling. It's always interesting though to talk about the process of going through. How many query letters did you send? Did you send out a ton of queries?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yes. And I still am. Like, I'm definitely not going to give up. I mean, I don't know, like,
Well, do you have people
for,
helping you with the query letters, or is it something you put together on your own?
I've been
I know.
studying a lot of templates
Yeah.
online about how you do that. I think in general, like, looking at it from an agent's point of view, it's probably more like a matter of, okay, well, does the pitch grab me?
Yeah.
Because I've definitely gotten a lot of responses very quickly, like within 2 hours from some of them who are just like, yeah, I'm not interested. And it's like, you didn't read it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I just think a lot of it is based on connections too.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of. I mean, there's like we said, there's so many different facets. I feel like
Hmm.
you've gotta hit all the right keys at the right times, and that's just, you know, who the heck knows how that's gonna work out.
Exactly.
Um, but Apex 5 is available now on Amazon,
Yes.
um, and it's been available since when? January or
November.
November? How have you seen it do so far since it's been out?
It's doing okay. I mean, the sci-fi genre is very, very popular, so it's not the easiest thing to keep it out there in front. I would definitely encourage authors to pursue book awards because that can help with your publicity. A lot of them can be expensive too, so you
Like
kind of want
entering
to.
contests, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I
Because
haven't
that's
even looked.
really. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say I haven't even looked at right. I didn't know that they cost money to enter too, though.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you definitely have to make sure that it's even worth the investment because, like, there's a good chance your book won't win.
Hmm. That's interesting. Have you done anything else in terms of marketing for Apex 5? I know we talked about this before. You have a really nice trailer that you had done for you for your book, and that was in January that came out.
Right. I'm also having the audiobook produced, so that should hopefully expose it to a lot more readers because a lot of folks are busy, they don't necessarily have the time to read,
Sure.
like visually. And I'm still performing daily social media promotion. So that's definitely something that you have to keep up with because you're always going to be reaching new people all the time. And I think it's helpful because it's free, right? It's free to promote over social media, and you just kind of have to keep expanding your network. Hashtags on Twitter are really helpful. Join as
Yeah.
many Facebook groups as you can. I would say specifically targeting genre and readers as opposed to other writers because other writers might just see you as competition. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, you should network with other writers on
Yeah.
social media for moral support and like tips and
Absolutely.
stuff, like, for query letters, everything like that, and maybe connections too, but like not, I mean, in terms of marketing your work though, I would say stick to readers and make sure that you are promoting to readers who have expressed an interest in your genre. I really stress this now because my book was book of the day for the Forum Online Book Club. And there were a lot of
Oh, cool.
folks commenting on the blurb who come right out and say, sci-fi is not my cup of tea. So, two questions on that. My first one is like, why are you even commenting? My
Sure.
second one is like, if it's not your cup of tea, not only like, why are you commenting, but like, why are you reading it at all? Like,
Yeah.
just pass it by, like it's not
Totally.
your thing. Because it tends to like bring it down, like the posts. It's like, well, it's like, oh, like, it's complicated, all these foreign names. Oh, no, sorry. It's like not even foreign, but like alien names. It's like, yeah, like Frodo and like, Mordor.
Exactly. They're made up fictional names.
Yeah, like I
So you did online bookclub.org. You used
yes,
that?
you heard of it. You heard of it.
I
Yeah.
used it too. And
How'd it go?
it was terrible. The guy read the book in like 3 days, and he said my character or the book was too cynical, which was very strange to me because I haven't gotten that feedback from anybody else.
Too
But
cynical.
he gave it a 2 out of 4 stars, and which whatever. But like the same thing, it was book of the day, and having all these comments like, oh well, the premise because the review was good. It was like I really love this, this, and this, but he was very
Yeah.
cynical. So, and the people were like, it sounds amazing, sounds like a really great book. Too bad it was cynical. I think I'll pass this one up.
Yeah,
I'm like,
same. Oh my God,
I'm like,
same. That
what?
exact thing. It's like, oh, it's too bad. The world building was too complex. I think I'll pass. It's like it's sci-fi.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
which
My sci-fi, it's mind-boggling. I'm like,
yeah.
why don't you like read it and see if it's your cup of tea? I don't think it's cynical, but it's just I hated that. So I just stopped looking after like a week because I couldn't do it anymore. I was like beating myself up
What's the
and
genre?
sci-fi, like
Oh,
sci-fi
well,
metaphysical.
sci-fi. Of course, it's going to be a little cynical. I mean, sci-fi is like it deals with tech and people. Like, how much more
Yeah,
cynical can you get? It sucks.
exactly. Yeah, and that's my sense of humor anyway. Or not cynical, but just like sarcastic and goofy. But I don't know. He was like there was he said there was too many times when the main character was trying to be sentimental and one or two characters like made fun of him for it. And there was one scene where that happens. I know I wrote the book. There was one scene where that happened.
It's like he's
So
lecturing you on your own book.
yeah, so I'm just like, oh god. But you live and you learn. I think for my first novel, it was like the perfect thing for me because if it was like 4 out of 4, I'd have been like, greatest writer of all time. I don't need to do anything else. Everyone should bow down to me. If it was like 1, I'd have been like, my life is over. I'll never write again.
Yeah, yeah.
But 2 is like, and he said he wanted to give it a 3 star, but he didn't understand the ending, which he was the only person that didn't understand the ending as well. So I don't know. If you read the book,
Yeah.
I don't get it. So, but to each their own. I can't control people. It just stinks that I had to pay for that.
Yeah, especially because they expect you to like make it free on that day. So you're probably not really going to get any return on investment there.
Right.
Um, yeah, I definitely noticed on the feedback that the feedback a lot of the time was more praising the reviewer and the review than even being
Yeah.
interested in the book. It's
Yeah.
kind of
Like,
like, I don't know, like a pat on the back almost, which is okay. Like, like my reviewer did a very good job. Like, I'm pretty sure it's a female due to the animated avatar, so I'll just say she. But yeah, Should give it a 3 out of 4. Like, I would definitely say more positive than negative. But the negative stuff is what people tend to focus on.
Yeah.
And I don't get it, because with me, if I read like, like a review that had good stuff in it, I would still check out the book, especially if it's my genre. And I'm not entirely sure that online book club has a lot of reviewers who read genre fiction.
Yeah. I just know that they like report that they have like 1 million+ readers or whatever on there. So I'm like, okay.
That's like impossible, isn't it? I don't know. It seems that's a lot of reviewers.
It's a good, but it's a nice way, because I was always thinking, I'm like, when I buy a book, I buy based off reviews.
Yeah.
Um, and so I thought, well, I was like, I need to get some reviews. And if you don't have like a network already built up, it's really the only route to go.
Exactly.
But I would caution anybody, like, be prepared if you do go that route.
Yeah, I mean, I entered the Book Life Prize, which gives you like a, not a free, obviously, but a critic that they say is from Publishers Weekly, but who really knows? And like, this person like tore my book to pieces. Um, it was actually really bad. But at the same time, though, they tended to follow up the negative with positive. So it's like, overall, I'm surprised the score was so low, because they did have like, some positive stuff that they followed up the negative stuff with. So I was surprised that it was like, such an overall really low score. But I don't know. I kind of just want my money back for that now, because it's like, why? I
You
mean,
think about it, like, I need
yeah.
my money back, man. Well, it's weird
Yeah,
because
because I don't know, like this review in particular is kind of like, you were saying about online book club. This review from like the Book Life was like, um, they took issue with aspects that I've never heard from other reviewers, really. Like, they were complaining about like one-dimensional characters. That's actually something I haven't heard. I've only heard about how like it's easy to care for all of the characters, like, despite there being like more than a couple.
yeah.
So that was interesting. But like, they were saying like there was some like originality, like an AIDS like pathogen, and like antipathy against homosexuality. I'm like, well, I don't think the antipathy against homosexuality is so original. I'm like, that's not one of the original elements in the book.
Right.
There are original elements, but that's not one of them. So I don't know. To
Well,
each their own.
it just speaks. I was just about to say, to each their own, and it just speaks to, like, I can have 100 to 150, whatever, how many people love what I do, and then one person dislikes it, and like, it destroys me. But at the same time, finding your audience is so important. And I know with self-published authors, finding your audience, like getting email lists, people who love that genre, people who are interested in your writing style, like building that group
Mm-hmm.
is how we basically go about it. Because with publishing companies, they already have that inborn group, something that they've cultivated over years and years and years of publishing similar type writings.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what we have to necessarily do for ourselves. We don't have to do it as large of a level, because when we indie publish, 70% of whatever, the cost is we get, which is great. But
Mm-hmm.
but it takes a lot of work. And I think I went into it without understanding that at first. But it's been a wonderful growth process for me. Um, Learning because we become our own business pretty much, right?
Mm-hmm. Know your target audience, yeah, and like really make sure that you are investing smartly.
Yeah. Which is, I won't give any investment tips. That's for damn sure. I
Yeah,
don't.
it's I mean, yeah, like, it's a learning process. Like the audiobook, for example, and the book trailer were not inexpensive. Like, I mean, I'm fortunate because I work in tech. I'm fortunate that I can afford this. But still, I mean, even with me, like the credit score is not happy, because like there's like multiple grands go into this stuff, like, I mean, like, especially if you can't do it on your own. Like, I couldn't make a book trailer that has like actors, because you have to hire those people, and like hiring means you pay them, so.
That's right. Well, that's what surprised me. Like I said, I saw the book trailer, and I've been making book trailers. I was
That's
interested.
impressive that you make your own, right?
Yeah,
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize how lucrative it was. I've made some free ones for people trying to help indie authors out. Like
Oh, well, it's very nice of you, Matt.
I had no clue how like I didn't realize that they cost that much. I was blown away when I saw the prices. I was like, I'm really giving these people a freaking deal, man.
I mean, to be honest, it really
Right?
depends on what your particular story
Yeah,
requires, right? So for
absolutely.
mine, it was helpful to actually visually show like a young child. Whereas, like,
Yeah,
with another book, you might be able to get away with only voiceovers. So it all really depends on budget. Like mine needed
yeah.
actors, and they happen to be in LA, so they happen to like have access to like sophisticated like cinematography type of stuff, like
The
like
graphics were
settings.
fantastic.
Yeah. Just really good editing. I mean, it was still a little expensive for what it was, but I could understand the price. I could.
Yeah, it makes sense. Definitely. It's a fun thing to do. We're all just trying to become best-selling, fantastic, world-changing authors, right?
Yeah, really. I mean, I'd say it's really about getting your material out there. So like for me, like, people are like, "Oh, do you make a lot of money? Do you make a lot of money?" And it's like it's not about the money at all. Like if it was about the money, we'd all be starving,
I
or like most of us. But like with me, I
don't
just
know
want
what
to
you're
put my
talking
world
about.
in
I
front.
got a check for $25 from Amazon last month, okay? I'm rolling it in.
You are. No. That's great. That's great. And like I don't know, like for me, it's about exposing readers to my world. It's not important they know who I am. It's not important that I make a lot of money at all. I just want to tell this story.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you that too, like what kind of legacy you wanted to leave with your writing, and
Yeah.
that kind of answers parts of it. You want to expose them to the world. What is it about that though? Like, why do you? I mean, do you feel like there's something in there of necessary importance? Is it a way for them to get to know you as a human being to leave a legacy for yourself, or
That's a good question. I would say on the political front, projecting the potential complications that could come along with technology that's advancing too rapidly. I do want to leave a message for people to caution them that way, especially like, having grown up in Silicon Valley and seeing how quickly just technology is just taking over everything.
hmm
But separating it from just me, there is a certain technology in the book that I feel like could be lucrative to human beings in the future if we could devise a way to use it. Um, and I would say that that would probably be the main legacy that I would want to leave people with. I mean, obviously, it would be great if it made it to the big screen. I think all authors, like, or like at least most authors, probably feel that way, especially for like kind of otherworldly
yeah. We create a
medium.
whole nother atmosphere for people to live in. It's yeah, to see it
Exactly,
realized.
escapism for people, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw Harry Potter the movie after reading the books, I was kind of pissed off, honestly, with some of the stuff. Like, but it is, and it's amazing because you want to see. It's like magic coming to life. It's your
Oh yeah,
whole world opening up.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
So the technology in the book, you said so basically, if we could figure out a way to work together as a species to make it a possibility.
Hmm.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, and that's where the whole political angle comes in too. Is like, I mean, obviously, this technology that's been deployed is used by a different faction than the nations who are warring with one another. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's all about finding a way to collaborate.
Be nice if we could all work together. Can you imagine where we'd be?
I know.
Be
Yeah,
on
we need to be
Mars.
like exploring other galaxies and possibly the multiverse.
I know. Instead of waging wars on one another, right?
Yeah, exactly, right here on this tiny planet.
Yep.
Um,
Get there.
what's the
We'll get.
name of your book? I want to check it out.
Oh, Trent Foster and the Council of Ten.
Okay, I'm gonna go look into that. Yeah.
If you want, you can see the book trailer I made on my YouTube channel. It's
Oh, for sure, definitely. That's awesome. You can make your own. Oh,
I think it's pretty cool.
I don't know.
I
Can't get
mean,
over
I don't.
that.
They're not like that quality because I don't have like actors or anything like that. I've
Right.
acted some of this stuff. Me and my girlfriend have done some acting in some of the trailers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. It's been good. It's been good though. I do want to give you last word, so we can find you at authorsarahkatz.com,
That's correct.
where we can find your blog, your book, and then we can follow you on Twitter as well.
Yes.
Do you know
Twitter
your
is also at author Sarah Katz.
At author Sarah Katz. Okay. Last word. Any profoundly parting knowledge you want to leave the world with?
Yes. Never presume to play God, ever. No matter who
Mm,
you are, no matter how much money you have, no matter what you've invented, no matter what you've founded, never presume to play God. It will not end well. It can only go downhill from there because you can't get any higher. So just don't do it.
that's right. Wow. You were ready. That's good. I
I
like that.
actually wasn't. It just kind of flowed out, but I don't know. Yeah.
It's great advice. I have tried playing God before earlier in my life, and it doesn't work out ever. Never.
It's like a seductive concept, right? I mean, even just as writers, we can kill off people like that. Like, I say, like, there's this, I don't know, there's a lot of glorification around actors and actresses, like celebrities, but you know what, the writers can just sit can just, like, end their contract just like at the drop of a hat because we can kill them off.
Sure. Yeah, it's very true. Being humble though, right? Like I said, that 2-star rating was definitely good for my humility. Just like, okay, work in progress. We're always a work in progress. Nobody's perfect.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
Sarah,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I thank you so much for coming on the UNWeb interview show. It was a pleasure getting to know you and getting to talk to you about Apex 5.
Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it, and I wish you the best of luck with your writing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to check out Apex 5. Everybody else, make sure you go on Amazon, pick up your copy of Apex 5 now. Bye.
Bye.